Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm doing the books to read in pairs tag. I was very kindly tagged by the creator of this, Jen Campbell, so thank you so much to her for that. And it's taken me a while to get around to this because it was something I found really hard. It wasn't something that I'd thought about before, putting books together in pairs, and this can be done in a number of ways. So from what I can see from both Jen's tag and people that have done the tag since, they've either married up a fiction and a non-fiction that have sort of similar themes, or some people have joined up two books which they feel work well together. And so what I'm going for here is something that suits me, and something that I've really got into this year is I have tried to read a classic a month, and I think I've managed to do that for the most part of the year. And I also have been reading a lot of retellings of classics, especially in more the YA genre. So I would read a classic and then read maybe a retelling, and I've really been enjoying that. So what I've done here is I've taken a classic that I've either read or want to read, and I've paired it up with a YA, I think in most part YA book, which is a retelling or has a lot of similar theme. So the first two books that I've paired up are The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald and Great by Sarah Benincasa. Now, The Great Gatsby, if I'm honest, I read a long time ago and it wasn't really for me. Although I really enjoyed the storyline, the writing style just didn't work for me personally. But because I enjoyed that storyline, that look at class, sexuality and sort of ambition to move up into different social classes, I thought that I might try a retelling and see if perhaps a similar storyline but set in a different time period and in more of a YA style might suit me. Now this one is about a girl called Naomi, and every year she goes to visit her socialite mother in the East Hamptons. She comes from Chicago and she's not really interested in these sort of snooty upper crust kids that she meets. She's not interested in them. She keeps herself to herself, but she starts to become intrigued by her next door neighbour Jacinta, who throws big lavish parties, and she becomes embroiled in their lives, and it just sounds really great. And I got this as a Christmas gift, so I'm really looking forward to giving it a go, and I definitely think that they will work well as a pair. The next two books are Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie and Second Star by Alyssa B. Shinemail. Now, Peter Pan is a classic. It's a story that I really enjoy, and I really like the idea of a modern retelling of this in a different setting. So in Second Star, we have a reimagining of Peter Pan where the two darling boys are surfers and they disappear off to join a renegade surfer gang, and their sister Wendy goes searching for them and follows them and becomes part of this gang. I think it's definitely a book that I want to read. I have it on my Kindle, and I'm definitely planning on rereading Peter Pan as well at some point. So I think these two really pair up nicely to read together. Next up, I really enjoyed Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte this year, and I read an awful lot of retellings at the time that I read this, but there is one that I really want to read that I have recently discovered, which I think pairs really well with this one. I don't actually own a copy, but it's called The Flight of Gemma Hardy by Margot Livesey, and the synopsis of this says: when her widower father drowns at sea, Gemma Hardy is taken from her native Iceland to Scotland to live with her uncle and his family. But the death of her doting guardian leaves Gemma under the care of her resentful aunt, and it soon becomes clear that she is nothing more than an unwelcome guest at Yew House. When she receives a scholarship to a private school, 10-year-old Gemma believes she's found the perfect solution and eagerly sets out again to a new home. However, at Claypool, she finds herself treated as an unpaid servant. To Gemma's delight, the school goes bankrupt and she takes a job as an au pair on the Orkney Islands. The remote Blackbird Hall belongs to Mr. St. Clair, a London businessman. His 8-year-old niece is Gemma's charge. Even before their first meeting, Gemma is like everyone on the island, intrigued by Mr. St. Clair. Rich, single, flying in from London when he pleases, Hugh St. Clair fills the house with life. An unlikely couple, the two are drawn to each other, but Gemma's biggest trial is about to begin. A journey of passion and betrayal, redemption and discovery that will lead her to a life which she never dreamed. Set in Scotland and Iceland, yes, in the 50s and 60s, yes. The Flight of Gemma Hardy is a captivating homage to Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre, a sweeping saga that resurrects the timeless themes of the original but is destined to become a classic all its own. And I definitely think that these two will go well together. I know that possibly this doesn't seem like the right idea for the tag because these are more retellings, but for me, from what works for me in terms of pairing books up is I really enjoy pairing a book and reading a classic with a retelling straight afterwards, because I think it really leaves those themes clear in your head. So I hope that no one's disappointed that I'm doing it like this, but it just is what works for me. The next two are not necessarily retellings, but I think very similar themes. And the first is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, and the one that I would pair this with is Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson. Both of these have themes of public rejection as a result of rape and adultery, and I just think they would be very interesting to look together. I haven't actually read The Scarlet Letter, but from what I can gather, it's about a woman. She's imprisoned and publicly shamed, and she's made to wear an A on her chest to show that she has committed adultery, and she's born an illegitimate child called Pearl, and it's about their life. And in Laurie Halse Anderson's Speak, we have a girl, she's in her freshman year, she phones the police during a party, and I believe that she believes herself or someone else to have been raped, and it's about how she is shunned at school and how that affects her life. And I just think these would be an interesting two to read alongside each other. Next up is my favourite book of all time. It's a big statement, but it is, and that is Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, and I would pair this with a book called Black and White by Paul Volpone. Both of these books look at justice and law and race relations. Although I haven't read Black and White by Paul Volpone, it's on my wish list, and it's about two boys, a black boy and a white boy, and they are really close friends. They play on a basketball team together, and one night something happens which affects them both in different ways and affects their friendship, and draws to light certain race relations. And I just think it's going to be a really interesting read, and I think it's one that would really go well with Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. Next up is Persuasion by Jane Austen, and the book that I would pair with this is For Darkness Shows the Stars by Diana Pettifon. Now, Persuasion was a book I read this year and really enjoyed, and at the crux and the heart of the story is that our main character has given up the chance of love to stay with her family, to look after her family, to do what she feels is needed for the family, and to find a suitor that would help the family. And in For Darkness Shows the Stars, although this is set far in the future and is totally different setting, we have Elliot, and she refuses to run away with her servant Kai because of the good of her family, and now things have changed, and I think it's going to be a really good book with similar themes, and I'm really interested to read that one now I've read this. Following themes of forbidden love and teen suicide, we have Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, and I would pair that with The Programme by Suzanne Young. In this story, we are following a world where teen suicide has become a bit of an epidemic, and we're following a girl who is desperate to stay out of the programme, which is sort of the cure for this depression and suicide. And there's a boy, and there's bound to be forbidden romance, and we all know the story of Romeo Romeo and Juliet, so I think these would make a great pair to read together. Next is 2 books about women in seemingly perfect marriages that choose to have affairs. The first is a classic, and I have this in a beautiful edition I was lucky enough to get to my birthday this year, and that is Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. And the book that I would pair this with is Hausfrau by Jill Alexander Esbaum. Both of these are set in totally different time periods, but both follow the lives of women who are in these perfect marriages, have everything that anyone from the outside could possibly think they want, but choose to have these affairs, which obviously hints towards problems and issues that are underlying in the marriage or with these women. And so I'm really interested to pair these together. And then the final 2 pairs is another one of my favourite books of all time, and that is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, and I would pair this with Birthmarked by Cara O'Brien. I have yet to read Birthmarks, but from what I can gather, it's very similar in some aspects. It's set in a world where you have a number of people that live outside the wall, and a quota of babies born outside the wall are donated and given, taken from their mothers and given to the rich people who live inside the wall, much like in The Handmaid's Tale, where it's set in a dystopian time where people have just, women have been given this function as breeders for rich people who can't get pregnant. I think these would be a really great pair, so I'm intrigued to see how these compare in terms of their themes. So there's quite a few pairs there. I know that they come across more as retellings, but I think that still pairs them up in a nice way to read together. I've definitely found this year, when I did a lot of retellings, I did it with Jane Eyre, and I think I did it with a couple of others. Pride and Prejudice, I think. And I really enjoyed doing that, especially Jane Eyre. I really enjoyed reading the retellings and pairing them together, because it's really interesting to see how one author has taken a story in a different direction but kept those similar themes running through. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much to Jen for tagging me, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.